Hey, my name is JC, and I'm excited to have you here today. I'm a clinical exercise physiologist and cancer exercise specialist. So, my biggest passion is helping cancer survivors exercise during and after treatment. It's a way to build body confidence, feel better about yourself, feel less aches and pains, improve your energy, build muscle, and extend your quality of life during and after treatment. And today, we're going to talk about how to properly exercise after cancer. Now, one of the most common questions I get is, I know that strength training is good for me, but I don't know how or where to get started. So, we're going to break down what a good routine looks like after a cancer diagnosis. Now, there's a couple caveats to this conversation. And the first one is that um, with a cancer diagnosis, every single person is going to be different. So, when you go through treatments, your side effects are going to be different than somebody else. Now, we know that in general, many people are going to have similar side effects, but the order you experience them, the severity that you experience them are all going to be different depending on the person. So there's no one routine that fits everyone, but you can take the same principles, like a generalized routine, and apply it to what works better for you. So we're going to use a generalized routine that works pretty good for 99% of cancer survivors. That being said, a couple things to know is if you have severe cancer fatigue, this routine might not be the best for you. And I'm defining severe cancer fatigue as you can't get out of bed. Or if you get out of bed, you go to the kitchen and back and you're exhausted already. That's severe cancer fatigue. In that case, you need to work with a cancer exercise specialist to create your routine for you. Okay. And another thing is you never want to add weight to areas that have metastasis on it. So you want to make sure that you take those two things into consideration when you're building a routine for yourself. Okay. Now let's get started. So any good routine, especially after cancer, requires you to do a warm up. Now, if you have fatigue, and most cancer survivors are going to have some level of fatigue. I'm defining fatigue and severe fatigue as different things. So let's say you have fatigue and you're struggling with your energy. You want to make sure that you're always applying the 10-minute rule. The 10-minute rule is when you get your body moving for about 10 minutes or so. And within those 10 minutes, if you feel better after the warm up, then you continue into your workout. If you don't feel better, then you stop and try again later. This is a good way to reset and check how your body is feeling before getting into a workout. Also, mentally, it's incredible to do because you feel like, hey, at least I did something today. And you don't, put yourself into guilt and constant shame and just negative self talk because you just didn't do anything when in reality you were struggling with fatigue. So, practicing the 10-minute rule is a great way to just give yourself a mini mental boost, but it also prepares you for the workout and it allows you to see how your body's actually feeling. Because a lot of times, what you're going to notice, call it 7 out of 10 times, you're going to realize that the 10-minute rule allows you to actually get started with the workout. Most times, you're going to feel ready to exercise. Okay. Call it 3 out of 10 times. You're going to feel really good and go into the workout. 3 out of 10 times, another 3 out of 10 times, you're going to feel okay. And then another 3 out of 10 times, you might not feel the best, right? So it really depends. And then that one time, you just feel great that day, right? So, anyways, it's a great way to prepare yourself for the workout. Now, what you want to do is you want to start from basically head to toes and you want to alternate between upper and lower body. So, you want to do one exercise and then another exercise. I'm using the word exercise loosely here, but it's a warm up exercise. It's an activation exercise. This is not to build muscle. This is not to create incredible strength. This is to just build some activity within the muscle to prepare it for the strength and muscle building exercises. So the exercises that go here, think of a glute bridge. That's a great hip, spine, glute exercise. It's a great activating exercise. That it's not a muscle building exercise, but especially when you're fatigued, putting that into your warm up feels great. I've had online coaching clients who have severe fatigue, and they do a glute bridge and they feel great doing it, even with severe fatigue in bed, by the way. So that is a great exercise to include. But generally, you want to include a shoulder exercise, something that targets your neck, shoulders, upper back, traps, and pair that up with a hip exercise, like like hip circles or monster walks, where you put a band, or you could do it without bands and you're going from side to side, or lateral leg lifts, things like that, because you want to warm up the hips and the shoulders. Okay, from there, you're gonna do another two exercises, and that's where you're gonna focus on some spinal and hips in a kind of like lateral, and instead of lateral, forward and backwards. So your hip circles, you're gonna raise your knee up, out to the side, down and forward. So it's like a circle that you're making with your hips. That's gonna helps the full rotation, lubricate the fullness of the joint. Whereas the next hip exercise is going to be a good morning. So this is where you just gently push your hips back as far as you can without bending your knees. You're going to feel a slight stretch on that hamstring, the back of the thighs, nice little stretch on the lower back. And it's going to start activating your lower back, glutes, and hamstrings for the workout. From there, you'll do another exercise for your shoulders. So you're basically doing two exercises there, and you want to include a spinal rotation movement. Now, only do that obviously if you don't have any metastasis in your spine, and if you don't have any lesions in your spine, you can do this exercise. But if you do, do not do any spinal twisting. So, exercises like open book, look throughs with a twist, all those are great to do to warm up your spine for the exercises as well. And then you also want to include some form of knees. So, like a deep squat, some knee flexion, some knee kicks. Um, the one where you're basically kind of standing on a platform, a small little platform, and you're kind of squatting down with one knee. So, if you stand like on about an inch high and then you drop your heel, those are all great to get your knees warmed up and ready for exercise. After this routine, I mean, this should take you about 10 minutes or so, but after this routine, it'll help build some strength, some fluid, some circulation into your body, into the joints, and lubrication. So this should help with a little bit of the aches and pains, a little bit of energy, and then prepare you for the actual workout itself. Now, at this point, if you don't feel good, then you just go back and rest and give yourself a high five because you got something done for that day. If you feel like you can keep going, this is where you get into your actual workout. Now, every person is going to be different, but there's a different movement patterns that you want to focus on. The reality is you're not going to be able to hit all of these in a workout session for various reasons. Number one, tiredness. Number two, everyone's going to have different limitations that are going to stop them from doing different movement patterns. So you're going to work within the movement patterns that work for your body. Now, what are the movement patterns? A squat, a hinge, a lunge, and a thrust. So all those four is going to be your lower body. Okay. From there, your upper body is going to be a horizontal press. So pressing in front of your chest, and then a vertical press, pressing above your head. That is your two pressing movements. So just from that exercise alone, you're not gonna be able to do most of them, or both of them. Sorry, because for example, if you had a mastectomy, you're gonna have issues raising your hands above your head, so you automatically won't be able to do any vertical presses or any presses above the head. But you can do presses in front of your chest. So that's an example of somebody who would be able to do some form of pressing, but not both kind of pressings. Same thing with the pull. You're going to do a vertical pull and a horizontal pull. Horizontal pull, keeping pulling something towards your chest. Vertical pull is pulling from above your head down to your chest. Obviously, if you have issues raising the hands above your head, you're not going to be able to pull down. So that limits the range of motion or the movements that you can do during your workout. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're getting some form of pressing and some form of pulling, that's all your body needs. Once you get that full range of motion back, then that's when you want to start including those other movements. But to start, you're going to choose the movement patterns that you can do without any aches or pains. Okay. And then you got your core exercises, which you want to do a stability. So that's going to be something that forces your body to not move from side to side. So, like for example, a Pallof press, where you have the cable in front of you and you press it in front of you with the cable pulling you sideways. So that Pallof press is pulling you sideways, so you're fighting the pull of the cable. That is a stability exercise. You want to make sure you're doing a stability exercise, one that stops you from twisting and one that stops you from bending, whether that's forward, sideways, or back. And then you want to do some form of crunching. That one is going to be a little bit more advanced, and I wouldn't recommend that to start with. You always want to start with some form of stability first. And then lastly, you want to include some sort of rotation. Those are the three patterns you want to focus on for the core. But to start off with, you always want to start off stability first. And as long as you're clear to do any twisting, then you can do twisting. And then lastly, you can do crunching. But stability is the main focus for any core exercises first. So those are the main movements that you want to focus on in a routine. Now, you also have exercises that are more tiring than others. So for example, a squat is going to be more tiring than a bicep curl. So what you want to do is, especially if you're low on time and if you don't like exercising, you want to make sure your routine is a lot quicker. Make sure to combine harder exercise with an easy exercise. And when I say the word easy, I don't mean that that exercise was easy for you to do. I mean that it doesn't require that much energy for you to do. So, like I said earlier, a squat takes a lot more energy than a bicep curl. So, your first exercise, you would do a squat and you combine that with the bicep curl. Because the bicep curl is going to be a lot easier for you to do in terms of fatigue. It doesn't have that much fatigue on your body. But it also prepares you for the rowing motion, which is a heavier exercise. So once you do your squat and bicep curl, you're going to do 2 sets. 2 sets is like the perfect amount for most cancer survivors, especially in treatment or somebody who hasn't exercised for more than a year. 2 sets is enough to see some progress, some growth, and do it without causing a lot of aches and pains. Now, from there, you're going to do your row and then some sort of pushing movement. Now, a row is in front of your body, so it's a horizontal pull. Even if you've had a mastectomy or any chest surgery, you should be able to still do a row. So rowing is a great exercise that I recommend. Most people aren't going to be able to do a lat pull down, for example, when they're first getting started with exercise, especially if they haven't gone through physical therapy. So it's important that you start off with a row. But if you do have the ability to do a vertical pull, for example, then you can do a lat pull down in this case. Absolutely fine. And you want to combine that with some sort of pushing exercise. This second round of exercises might feel a little bit harder because you are combining two generally demanding exercises. And I've done this purposefully, and I'll explain so later. So you want to do some sort of row where you're pushing horizontal, and then you want to do some sort of pushing. Now, this can be vertical push, like a shoulder press, or it could be a horizontal push, like a wall push up or an incline push up. Those are two great combinations to have. Whenever you're combining exercises, you want to do exercises that are opposite to one another. So you wouldn't do two bicep exercises back to back. You would do a bicep exercise and a tricep exercise, or a leg exercise and a shoulder exercises. You want to do exercises that don't overlap in muscles, so that way you're not tiring the same muscle group. And then the last but not least, or the last group of exercises that you're going to do is a hip hinge and a tricep exercise. Now, the beauty of this routine that I'm telling you right here is that you're basically preparing your body to work the next set of exercises. So when you do your squat and a bicep, when you're doing rows also work on your bicep. So working on your bicep first gets the biceps a little bit tired, and it helps you focus a little bit more on the rows while still targeting the front of your arm. Same thing with a row and a push-up or some sort of pushing exercise. It still works your tricep. So when you go to your last set, which is a hip hinge and a tricep exercise, you've already worked your triceps at least once, and then you can really focus on them a lot more. So, for example, it's a hip hinge movement and a tricep exercise. Now, the reason I made and by the way, you can make a row and a push exercise the first group of exercises that you do. I recommend that, especially if you have the most energy in your first group of exercises. But if it takes you a little bit of if it takes you a little bit of time to build up some energy, then go ahead and put that as your second group of exercises. But regardless, I like to keep the hip hinge and triceps last. Or I like to keep them separate from the squat because the hip hinge is a very different pattern than a squat. And if you start comparing your squat and your hip hinge, or you put them next to one another, you're going to mess up the form in between and you're not going to be working the muscles that you want. Also, even though the hip hinge requires a lot of energy, you're going to be starting off with very light weight because the focus is going to be on learning the skill, technique, and proper form first before you're adding weight. So this last exercise, doing a hip hinge, should not get you tired. It should really be focused on the fundamentals and not on pushing the weight. So with that, you're also going to be comparing it up with the tricep exercise. That should not take you much energy either. It's going to be working on the back of your arm, which makes your day-to-day activities easier. Pushing a door or putting something down. Like there's just so many movements that you use your triceps throughout the day that makes your day-to-day easier. So that's why working on your arms, I mean, you use them for everything, right? Is so important. So that is your basic routine. That's your day one, essentially. And then your day two, assuming you don't have any limited range of motions, you do the same movements or similar movements, but the other 3 or 4 exercises that are similar. So, for example, instead of a squat, you're going to focus on a lunge. Instead of a hip hinge, you're going to do a thrust. Instead of a vertical row, you're going to do a horizontal row. Instead of a horizontal row, you're going to do a vertical pull down. Instead of horizontal push, you're going to do a vertical press. So there's different exercises that are very similar that you can do for that second day. And it makes the programming easier once you already have it laid out. Now, once you have completed with that workout routine, and remember, you're only doing 2 sets, and you can do anywhere between 3 reps to 10 reps. That's really the range I like to keep it at, so that way you're not too sore, too tired for the rest of your day. So maxing it at 2 sets, this should take you about 20 to 30 minutes. Now with the warm-up, that's going to take you about 30 to 40 minutes or so, including a warm-up. At this point, your workout or the hard work of the routine is done. So by 40 minutes in, you're going to have most of your work already done. The last 20 minutes, it's really focused on you and what you need most. And what does that mean? If you're struggling with having a weak core, weak hip flexors, weak ankles, if you have fall risk, if you have maybe bad posture, if you have aches and pains that you want to work on, if you need to work on stretching, any tightness, any stiffness, this is where you're going to take the time to focus on those minor discrepancies. And I use the word minor discrepancies, even though they're really big issues and problems. But I'm saying minor because the strength training is going to take care of the majority of the work. But you still need some targeted exercise and targeted movements to help take it that step further. So that last 20 minutes is really for you to focus on what your body needs. Excuse me. If you're struggling with balance or you're at higher fall risk, then you're going to take that time to do some balance during the cool down period. If you have some tightness, some rigidity, some stiffness, then you can take some extra time to stretch here. This is the simplest part of the routine where you really get to just relax and let the movements feel good and feel better. Okay. So that is how you set up a routine that helps you feel better, stronger, build muscle, keep you energized. And that's how you stay healthy during and after treatment. You can do this routine 2 days a week, and it's going to be very effective at building muscle, building strength, and giving you some endurance and stamina. Now, if you've gone through this routine and you're like, wow, that is a lot to take in, I'm not really sure what to do with this information, don't you worry because I got you covered. Okay. So I do have a free workout plan. It's about a 12-week workout plan. It's already made for you. It has the exercises that you need to do. So that way you don't have to worry about what exercises, how many sets, how many reps. It has everything you need. And it also comes with the exercise library in it where you can search up the exercise and you know exactly how to do it. Now, if you want that, it's going to be below in the link in bio. So that way you don't have to worry about creating these routines yourself. I do have that built for you. So if you want, go ahead and grab that. And if you ever have any questions, definitely let me know. I try to answer as many questions as I can to make sure you have what you need to be successful in your health and fitness journey. Once again, I'm JC. I'm super glad you made it here today. And if you ever have any questions, I'm always here to help. Take care.